Get the sheets. Just have a look. Here I have given you 3 chapters, first 3 chapters, 1.1, 1.2 and 1.3. And these are the PYQs from these chapters. What did you understand from these PYQs? Why should you see this? Just see the trend and tell me. In 2023, you have seen this question on social and cultural anthropology, right? Again, see 1994 question. D. 1994 question. Again, they asked on social and cultural anthropology. Yes? See 2022 question. They asked 20 marker for holistic study of humankind. And similar question was asked in 2020 for same 20 marker, holistic spirit of the discipline. Again, in 2018, fourth question, there is a question on archaeological anthropology, right? Again, you find this question in 1992 for 10 marks, archaeological anthropology. So there is a trend. See, when you are referring to the sources, there are multiple sources for anthropology. Just keep 2 things in mind. One is a syllabus and the other is PYQs. Without these 2, if you start digging into the topic, there is no meaning at all, right? So you will get to know for which kind of question they are allotting how many marks, so that they serve as a boundaries for you to study how much depth you can go to that topic. So today we'll start with our first topic, meaning, scope and development of anthropology. So as we discussed earlier, what is the meaning of anthropology? Study of? See, while you are defining, keywords are very important. You need not reproduce the same definition, but don't forget the keywords in the definition. Tell me. Study of? Study of? Human evolution. Okay. I want across space and time. So you are studying only human evolution? What is human evolution? What exactly you are studying? Holistic study of man across time and space. Please define these keywords. What do you mean by holistic study? What is total? Don't give me synonyms. What is holistic study? What are you studying in anthropology? What is that holistic part of man you are studying?
Biological and physical culture.
Yes. You study biological aspects. Cultural, biological or physical means the same. Psychological, yes. Societal aspects, yes or no? Right. What do you mean by this keyword time, across time? What do you mean by it? Past, prehistoric past or normal past, historic past? Which one? Then it will be, when you study a human past, it will be a history, right? It's not anthropology. What are you studying? Beyond history you are studying. History gives you chronological account of where written records are available. But in anthropology, you also study prehistoric societies. Prehistoric societies, historic societies, ever since man was born. Right? Across space, what do you mean by this keyword? You study man across space, not interstellar space. What do you mean? You don't see. There is a geographically man is distributed. It's not like you concentrate only man in urban society, only man in a rural society, right? You'll geographical extent. You study man across the continents, across, you can say rural areas, urban areas, even tribal areas. Yes? Now you understood the definition of anthropology. So tell me, what is the definition of anthropology? Connect the keywords and tell in your own words. Don't miss the keywords. In your own words. What do you mean by anthropology?
Anthropology is a study of holistic.
It's a holistic study of man across time and space. Right. So, different anthropological thinkers gave different definition of anthropology. For example, Kroeber. He says anthropology is a study of group of men and their behavior. For him it's a group behavior. It studies group of men and their behavior, right? And Jacob and Stern, they say anthropology is the biological, cultural and social development of man. It's a study of biological, cultural and social development of man ever since he was born on the earth. So, please write down the definitions first. See, when you are writing notes, make sure after end of each topic, you leave a blank page so that in future you can make some value additions. Okay? Because in anthropology, you have to add more examples and case studies. Definition of anthropology. Just keep the heading of the topic, meaning, scope and development of anthropology. Side heading, definition of anthropology. The word anthropology is derived from two Greek words, anthropos meaning man and logos meaning study. Which means anthropology is a study of man. Which means anthropology is a study of man. Clyde Cluckhorn define anthropology as a holistic discipline of studying man in totality. Jacobs and Stern define anthropology as a scientific study of physical, social and cultural development of human beings and cultural development of human beings ever since their appearance on the earth. 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 Kroeber defined anthropology as a study of group of men and their behavior. As the study of group of men and their behavior. As the study of group of men and their behavior. Thus, anthropology is a holistic study of biological and cultural evolution and variation of man across time and space. Evolution and variation of man across time and space. So tell me, what are the unique features of anthropology you have known? What are the unique features of anthropology? Cultural relativism. Can someone explain me this? We have discussed in orientation class. Cultural relativism. What is cultural relativism? See, when you don't know the term, just go with the terms. Etymology. Relative. Comparison, right? So, what do you mean by this term? Cultural relativism. When you are comparing cultures, you should not judge cultures. You should study cultures from their own perspective. This is what cultural relativism says. Give me an example. Do you remember Khasas? Polyandry I said? Guys, you have to revise these topics, examples. For each topic you will have many examples. See, if you don't write example, it will be almost equal to a GS answer. I told you about Khasas. Khasas have this polyandry. What is polyandry? Multiple husbands. Why do they have this? Is it derogatory? Having such a custom? Why not? See, I told you, yes. Their economy is subsistence economy. There is a food shortage and women are the major source of reproduction. To control the reproduction, what they did? Multiple husbands, marry a single woman so that the reproduction levels, fertility levels are very low. And they were able to manage with that enough food grains. They need not go starving and die, right? So, can we apply this? There are questions like, what is the contemporary relevance of anthropology? When they ask such questions, how can you write using this approach? This feature of anthropology, how can you write what contemporary relevance of anthropology? Do we have any problems we are facing today that anthropology can solve with this approach? See, basically it says that don't judge other cultures. Simply put, right? Don't judge. Are we judging other cultures today? No. There are news that people are being beaten to death because on the suspicion of eating beef. So for Hindus, eating beef by the Muslims is a taboo. So there are certain, what is happening? There is a violence, people are killing. Can't we use this approach? When you understand that beef eating is a part of their culture, when you understand their culture, you will not feel offended. You improve your tolerance levels because of this approach. And there are also instances where tribals are beaten to being attacked. Tribals, Northeast people are being attacked because they have a different facial features. Yes or no? So we are lacking this approach in our society. We are being very ethnocentric that we feel that our culture is superior. There are incidents where Adivasi tribal, I guess, in Madhya Pradesh, they peed on him of late. Don't you think this approach is lacking? Can this approach help society? Yes. So when they ask questions like what is the contemporary relevance of anthropology, or is anthropology can solve problems of the society? Yes. You just mention these features, give an example. And there are also instances like what I have personally seen when I've been to North India. We know in South India marriages happen between cross cousins. Cross cousins marriages jargutayi kada. So the people used to think, they asked me directly, you South Indian people marry your brothers and sisters. For North Indian people, all cousins are brothers and sisters. But for us, parallel cousins. Ante ela? ఇప్పుడు ఫాదర్ వాళ్ళ అన్నయ్య డాటర్ ఏమవుతారు? సిస్టర్ అవుతారు. అదే ఫాదర్ వాళ్ళ సిస్టర్ డాటర్ ఏమవుతారు? మరదలు అవుతారు కదా. అది క్రాస్ కజిన్. ఫస్ట్ చెప్పింది ప్యారలల్ కజిన్. సో మనం ప్యారలల్ కజిన్స్ అందరినీ బ్రదర్స్ అండ్ సిస్టర్స్ అంటాం. క్రాస్ కజిన్స్నేమో వీ కెన్ మ్యారీ దెమ్, వీ హ్యావ్ దట్ కస్టమ్. బట్ నార్త్ ఇండియన్ సొసైటీస్లో ఏంటి అంటే మొత్తం ప్యారలల్ కజిన్స్, క్రాస్ కజిన్స్ అందరూ బ్రదర్స్ అండ్ సిస్టర్సే. సో దే ఆర్ వెరీ క్విక్ టు జడ్జ్ మీ. So me South Indian culture, you marry brothers and sisters. So I said, see, this is our custom. You can't judge like that. It's a custom. See, you cannot ask me a biological explanation why this, why that. It's a custom. It's a tradition in our society. We are following it. So because it is not in your tradition, you can't keep telling that practice as derogatory. Yes or no? That's a simple thing. Next, we'll go to the next feature. So now you understand how anthropology actually helps to solve problems. Right? What is the next feature? Holism. What is holism? As you said, it's a holistic study. For example, if we take sociology, let's compare. If we take sociology, what do you study in sociology? We study modern societies. In modern societies, especially we study rural societies, urban societies. We study culture, yes, their cultural aspects, their marriage, kinship, politics, economics. But what is the scope? We study rural and urban. Next, if you take psychology, psychology studies individual psyche, individual behavior, why he is behaving the way he is behaving, why, what are the reasons, individual level we'll go. If we go history, we just study our not prehistoric past, historic past, where the written records are available, right? If you medicine, what do you study? What is the cause of a disease, how the disease is spreading, and how to treat that disease. That's it. But what anthropology studies is, for example, if you take medical anthropology, a specialized branch of anthropology, here we study, same, we also study what is the cause, what is the spread, and how to treat the disease. Apart from that, what are the cultural norms that are responsible for a spread of a disease? For example, you have seen vaccine hesitancy in tribal areas. People don't believe in modern medicine. They depend on local shaman, medicine man. No, Ayurveda mokkala untayi kada. So vaati meeda and వాళ్ళకి లోకల్గా కొంతమంది మెడిసిన్ మెన్ ఉంటారు. So they are so much venerated that they don't even trust on vaccines. So adi enduku. And also ఈ ఈస్ట్ గోదావరి వెస్ట్ గోదావరి ట్రైబల్ ఏరియాస్లో సిక్కిల్ సెల్ అనేమియా అనేది ఎక్కువగా వస్తుంది. హ్యావ్ యూ హర్డ్ ఆఫ్ ఇట్? సిక్కిల్ సెల్ అనేమియా. సో ఏమవుతుంది అంటే ఈ డిసీజ్ వల్ల పీపుల్ ఆర్ డైయింగ్. ఇది ఎందుకు వస్తుంది? యాక్చువల్లీ యాజ్ అ డాక్టర్ ఆర్ అ మెడికల్ పర్సన్ నేను ఎలా చదువుతాను దీన్ని? ఐల్ గెట్ హాస్పిటల్ నుంచి డేటా వస్తుంది, ఎంతమందికి వచ్చింది. సో ఎందుకు వస్తుంది? బికాస్ ఆఫ్ జెనెటిక్ డిసార్డర్, దట్స్ ఇట్. This is what I will study as a medical person. But as an anthropologist, what they will study is what are the cultural norms that is causing this sickle cell anemia. In these tribes, there is endogamy. They will marry within the group, they will marry. So, ఏమవుతుందంటే recessive traits అని కొన్ని ఉంటాయి, అవి డామినెంట్ అయ్యి this sickle cell anemia is being exposed and that is threatening people. So, this is what holistic గా చదువుతాం. It undertakes interdisciplinary, అన్ని disciplines నుంచి we take the parts and we'll study anything. Either it can be sports, we call it kinanthropometry, medicine, forensic anthropology, whatever. We take principles from these things. Even archaeology, we take the knowledge of geography, climate, geology, stratigraphy. So that's why it's called holistic study. Right? Next. Third, field work. See, when you want to talk about a particular culture, where do you get the information from? ఒక కల్చర్ గురించి మనం మాట్లాడాలి, తెలుసుకోవాలి అంటే ఇన్ఫర్మేషన్ ఫస్ట్, డేటా కావాలి కదా. హౌ విల్ యూ గెట్ దట్ డేటా అబౌట్ దట్ పర్టికులర్ కల్చర్? Is it the only method? Don't we have books? Yes, we have books. Books ఉంటాయి. ఇంకా ట్రావెలర్స్ వెళ్ళినప్పుడు వాళ్ళు కూడా అకౌంట్స్ రాస్తారు కదా, సో అవి ఉంటాయి, మూవీస్ ఉంటాయి. సో ఇన్ని సోర్సెస్ ఉన్నప్పుడు ఫీల్డ్ వర్క్ అంటే ఏంటి? యూ విల్ గో టు ద ఫీల్డ్, యూ విల్ కలెక్ట్ డేటా. సో హౌ ఈస్ దట్ యూనిక్ ఫీచర్ ఆఫ్ ఆంథ్రోపాలజీ? ఇట్ ఈస్ ఆల్సో కైండ్ ఆఫ్ డేటా కలెక్షన్. How it differs from other sources? Why is it called unique?
He experienced his own culture and he will come to know what was lacking there. By experience.
He will see with his own eyes. You're saying he'll get a first-hand information, right? And
books lo emo konja add chesaru ante unnadanante konja exaggeration.
Yes, biases. మరి థింకర్స్కి biases ఉండదా? చూసే వాళ్ళకి దే విల్ నాట్ బి న్యూట్రల్ కదా. సి వీల్ హ్యావ్ సంథింగ్. సపోజ్ యాజ్ ఐ సెడ్, ఇప్పుడు మీకు కజిన్ మ్యారేజ్ గురించి చెప్పాను, సేమ్ అబ్జర్వర్ కూడా అలానే ఉంది మైండ్. దాన్ని కూడా హీ విల్ సీ ఇట్ యాజ్ అ డెరోగేటరీయే కదా, డెరోగేటరీ ప్రాక్టీస్లానే చూస్తాడు. అబ్జర్వర్ బయాస్ అనేది ఎప్పుడూ ఉంటుంది. సి వాట్ మేక్స్ ఇట్ యూనిక్ ఇస్ దట్ ఫీల్డ్ వర్క్లో ఒక మెథడ్ ఉంటుంది, పార్టిసిపెంట్ అబ్జర్వేషన్ అని. ఈ పార్టిసిపెంట్ అబ్జర్వేషన్, ఇట్స్ నాట్ జస్ట్ అబ్జర్వింగ్, యూ విల్ బికమ్ దట్ మెంబర్ ఆఫ్ దట్ కల్చర్. ఆ కల్చర్ మెంబర్ అయిపోయి వాళ్ళ కల్చరల్ ప్రాక్టీస్లో యూ విల్ జాయిన్ ఇన్ దేర్ కల్చరల్ ప్రాక్టీస్, యూ విల్ ఎంగేజ్ విత్ దెమ్ అండ్ దెన్ యూ విల్ రైట్. There are certain rules for field work, how to do field work. You have to learn that language of the locals, you have to maintain good rapport with the locals. So you will get such kind of sensitive information where you don't even get through observation. You will become a member of that society. And this method was developed by anthropologists, and this method is being used in all other disciplines today. Developed by Malinowski. This is very important because so many questions are being asked in different chapters, not this chapter. We have chapter 8, tools of data collection. In that, field work is very important. Even this year there was a question on field work, 2024. So you know what is participant observation, right? Next, we'll grow with the other feature is synchronic and diachronic. What do you mean by this? Just decode the word and tell what you understood. Because you will see some peculiar words sometimes in question paper. When you don't know what to answer, at least try to decode the word. Etymology. Tell me, what do you think seeing this word? Synchronic, diachronic. Either what it is related to, what do you think?
ఒక రీజియన్ ని పాస్ట్ లో చదవడం ఇప్పుడు చదవడం.
Okay, time. Chronology. విన్నాం కదా? Chronology నుంచి derive అయింది. అంటే it is something related to time. Synchronic. అంటే you are studying a culture at a particular point of time. Synchronic. Die means you know two. Time. You study a particular culture across different time periods. So what is the advantage of studying having a diachronic study? You are studying a culture across different periods, like 100 years ago it was like this, now it was like this. What was the significance of having a diachronic study? Yes, you will understand the dynamic nature of a society. What are the factors influencing in which direction that society is heading, right? So synchronic, these studies helps you understand the contemporary, the present stage of a culture, where the culture is as it is. Yes. This approach was majorly used by functionalists. You'll get in chapter 6, functionalist, like Malinowski and Radcliffe Brown. And this approach was majorly used by evolutionists and diffusionists, where they study the evolution of culture. See, these people, evolutionists and diffusionists, they studied the culture since its origin and how it developed in stages. Okay? Next, fifth. Emic and etic. Emic and etic. What do you understand by this? No? Emic and kind of, you can refine that. Emic and etic approach. What is etic approach? What is emic approach? Emic, insider view. Etic, observer view, or the thinker who is conducting that study. What do you mean by this? Can you give any example of emic and etic approach from your own real life examples? Let me give you one example, then you just try to figure out your own example, right? Let's take an example of the experience of blink and wink. Do you know winking, right? Wink. Wink. See, when you just wink, for an outsider, it will be like it's just a biological twitch. Edo koncham durada vachi atla, or else ఏదైనా లైట్ పడినప్పుడు అలా జస్ట్ ఒక బయాలజికల్ ఇన్వాలంటరీ యాక్షన్ అని అనుకుంటారు ఇఫ్ ఇట్ ఈస్ అ అబ్జర్వర్ బయట నుంచి చూస్తే. బట్ ఫర్ అ పర్సన్ ఇన్సైడర్ హీ ఈస్ సిగ్నలింగ్ టు అ ఫ్రెండ్. This is for observer, it's just a blink, it's a biological twitch, an involuntary action for him. But for an insider, it's a wink. For the person who did that sign, it's a wink only, right? So now just tell me one example from your side.
Case studies of anthropologists అక్కడ నా పర్టికులర్ ఏరియాలో వాళ్ళు ఏం చేస్తున్నారు.
ఎగ్జాంపుల్ అదే సి ఇప్పుడు ఆంథ్రోపాలజిస్ట్ ఫీల్డ్ వర్క్కి వెళ్తారు, దే విల్ అబ్జర్వ్. ఎవరు ఇంకొక ఫ్రెండ్కి కనుక్కొట్టారు అనుకోండి, సో వాట్ ఆంథ్రోపాలజిస్ట్ విల్, అమెరికన్ ఆంథ్రోపాలజిస్ట్ ఇండియా వచ్చాడు అనుకుందాం. సో వాట్ హీ విల్ డూ, వాట్ హీ విల్ థింక్, సమ్ డిసీజ్ ఉంది అనుకుంటారు కదా, అంతే అనుకుంటారు. బికాస్ దే డోంట్ నో ద కల్చరల్ కాంటెక్స్ట్ ఆఫ్ వై ఆర్ వి వింకింగ్. మనకే తెలుసు మనం సిగ్నల్ ఇస్తున్నామని తెలుసు, రైట్? ఐ థింక్ దూకుడు మూవీ, రైట్? వీ హ్యావ్ దట్ సీన్ వేర్ విచ్ డిఫరెన్షియేట్ బిట్వీన్ బ్లింక్ అండ్ వింక్. So, any example from your side? Any questions so far? Then I have a question. if you don't question me. You have to give me the answer. Right. Tell me the difference between cultural relativism and emic approach. Cultural relativism and emic approach.
Compares the two cultures.
Compare చేస్తున్నాం. See, you should not say that is cross cultural studies antam. Compare is not the thing. Don't judge the other culture is the right term. Right? You're not judging other cultures. What is emic approach? See, cultural relativism kuda ade cheptadi. What it says, you understand a culture from its own perspective, from its own logic. Emic says insider perspective. Take insider perspective. So what is the difference? Participatory? Observation is a technique in field work. It's a method. What is the difference between? See, in emic approach, it gives the meaning of culture. You'll get the meaning of a culture. What is the meaning of wink? What is the meaning of wink? To signal a friend. It's not a biological twitch. In cultural relativism, you just tell the observer that you need to view culture as equally valid. It's an approach which tells the observer. Right? Here you are understanding the meaning. There you are developing some kind of tolerance there. Okay? Next, the other thing is cross-cultural studies. ఎలా చెప్పాలి? అర్థం కాల. యు ఆర్ ఎక్స్ప్లెయినింగ్. సి ఇప్పుడు ఒక ఎలిమెంట్ ఉంది. సపోజ్ ఈ బ్లింక్ అండ్ వింక్ ఎక్స్పీరియన్సే తీసుకుందాం. కల్చరల్ రిలేటివిజం అంటే ఏంటంటుందంటే, బ్లింక్ వాట్ ఇట్ సేస్, ఇఫ్ అ పర్సన్ బ్లింక్స్ యూ డోంట్ అండర్స్టాండ్ ఇట్ ఫ్రమ్ యువర్ ఓన్ పర్స్పెక్టివ్ అని చెప్తుంది. దట్స్ ఇట్. దట్స్ నాట్ ద రైట్ వే. బ్లింక్ అంటే నీ మీనింగ్ నువ్వు తీసుకోకు, బయాలజికల్ ట్విచ్ అని నువ్వు చెప్పొద్దు అంటది. అదే ఎమిక్ ఏమంటుందంటే, యూ టేక్ ద అవుట్సైడ్, అంటే వాళ్ళ ఎవరైతే ఆ కల్చర్లో పార్టిసిపెంట్స్ ఉంటారో యూ టేక్ దేర్ పర్స్పెక్టివ్, సో నీకు కరెక్ట్ మీనింగ్ తెలుస్తుంది అని. అర్థమైందా? రైట్. క్రాస్ కల్చరల్ అండ్ కంపారిటివ్ స్టడీస్. Tell me, what do you mean by this? Why should you compare? Why should you study different cultures? Why? ఒక కల్చర్ తెలుసుకోవచ్చు కదా. You can study one culture. Why should you study different cultures? Why should you compare different cultures when they are different? Why? What is the purpose? Why do your father compares you with your younger or elder sibling? Why? See, when you compare different cultures, you will understand the common phenomenon like general features and specific features of culture. See, here evolutionists, the thinkers, are trying to study the evolution of a culture. Culture asla ela start ayindi, how it originated, how it developed. For example, if I say evolutionist, what they say, culture across the world developed in a sequential and unilinear way. What do you mean by this? Across the world, all the cultures go through definite stages. Like they told 3 stages. They'll go through savagery first, then they'll go to barbarism, and then they'll reach civilization. So all the cultures will go through these 3 stages. This is what they are saying. So when you have to give this kind of generalization, you have to study cultures, different cultures, and you have to compare them. You have to know what are the general features of a culture and what are the specific features of the culture. And in culture ecology model, Julian Stewart, he says every culture is specific. After studying different cultures, they came up with a theory of specific evolution. Yes, వాళ్ళ ఓన్ వేలో వాళ్ళు ఇవాల్వ్ అవుతూ వచ్చారు. నాట్ దట్ ఎవ్రీ కల్చర్ హ్యావ్ టు గో త్రూ దీస్ 3 స్టేజెస్. సో దట్స్ వై టు జనరలైజ్డ్ అండ్ టు బ్రింగ్ అవుట్ థియరీస్ దే యూస్ టు స్టడీ క్రాస్ కల్చరల్ సొసైటీస్. అండ్ వై కంపారిటివ్? you know what these people did? Because these are prehistoric societies, we don't have any written record of what happened in prehistoric times, because we don't have any script, we don't have any written things. Only thing is we have either artifacts, or in few cultures we don't even have that artifacts as well. So to fill the gaps, what they did is they used to compare cultures, like prehistoric cultures they used to compare with present primitive societies. So they used to be under one assumption that the current primitive societies, the tribal societies, are almost equal to those prehistoric societies. Of course, they have their own set of criticisms. We'll study that in chapter 6, right? So please write down.
Culture related with cross culture comparative.
Cross culture is, see,
We are judging it now.
no, we are not judging cultures.
Comparing it now.
We are comparing, but we are not judging. వాట్ ఈస్ కంపేర్ చేస్తున్నామంటే ఇక్కడ వాల్యూ ఉంటుంది కల్చరల్ రిలేటివిజంలో. అంటే ఏంటి, ఇది గుడ్, ఇది బ్యాడ్, అది జడ్జ్మెంట్. జడ్జ్ చెయ్యం, ఇక్కడ వాల్యూ ఉండదు. సో ఇక్కడ ఏం చెప్తాం, ఒకటి ఎక్కువ ఒకటి తక్కువ అని చెప్పాం. ఇక్కడ ఇది ఉంది, అక్కడ అది ఉంది అని చెప్తాం. రెండిటికి డిఫరెన్స్ ఉంది. ఐఎమ్ టెలింగ్ యూ వన్ ఈజ్ గుడ్, వన్ ఈజ్ బ్యాడ్. కల్చరల్ రిలేటివిజం కాదు, యాక్చువల్లీ అది ఎథ్నోసెంట్రిజం. కల్చరల్ రిలేటివిజం కౌంటర్స్ ఎథ్నోసెంట్రిజం. I'll tell you it. Example, సపోజ్ పాలియాండ్రియా తీసుకుందాం. కల్చరల్ రిలేటివిజం నార్మల్గా కల్చరల్ రిలేటివిజం ఏమంటుందంటే పాలియాండ్రీని జడ్జ్ చేయొద్దు అంటది. ఎథ్నోసెంట్రిజం ఏమంటది అంటే, ఎథ్నోసెంట్రిజం అంటే you feel that your culture is superior, my culture is superior. So our vision, when you wear that lens, every other culture seems very inferior. Suppose, take in my culture, there is monogamy. Only one man has to marry one woman. That is the best form. I feel that it is a best form. If I feel that that is a best form, then I am ethnocentric. Then what do I do? When I see polyandry, I start telling it, this is derogatory. ఇది అరాచకం అని చెప్తాను నేను. దిస్ ఇస్ ఎనార్కీ, పీపుల్ డోంట్ నో సెన్స్, సివిక్ సెన్స్ లేదు. సో ఐ కీప్స్ గివింగ్ సచ్ స్టేట్మెంట్స్. దట్ ఈస్ వై దే కాల్డ్ ఇట్ అ బార్బారిక్ స్టేజ్ అని చెప్పారు రివల్యూషన్లో. బార్బారిజం, దాట్స్ అ స్టేజ్. సావేజరీ, ఇవన్నీ ఎథ్నోసెంట్రిక్ టర్మ్స్. గుడ్ అండ్ బ్యాడ్, ది వాల్యూ జడ్జ్మెంట్స్. కల్చరల్ రిలేటివిజం అలా చేయొద్దు అంటుంది, ఎథ్నోసెంట్రిజం అలా చేస్తుంది. ఎమిక్, వాట్ ఈస్ ద అదర్ క్వశ్చన్ యూ ఆస్క్డ్? క్రాస్ కల్చర్ కంపారిజన్లో ఏం చెప్తామంటే, ఓకే ఈ ఫీచర్స్ దీంట్లో పాలియాండ్రీ ఖాసాలో ఉంది, మోనోగమి హిందూయిజంలో ఉంది, పాలిగైనాండ్రీ తోడాస్లో ఉంది అని తెలుసుకుంటాం అంతే. వీ డోంట్ గివ్ అవర్ జడ్జ్మెంట్, ఇది బ్యాడ్ ఇది గుడ్ అని చెప్పాం. సో ఎలా అంటే, ఇప్పుడు సపోజ్ ఫర్ ఎగ్జాంపుల్ ఒక సొసైటీలో పాలిగామీ ఉంది, ఎస్పెషలీ ట్రైబల్, ఒక ఓల్డ్ వెరీ ప్రిమిటివ్ సొసైటీలో దెర్ ఈజ్ అ సెక్షువల్ ప్రామిస్క్యూటీ అనుకుందాం. మ్యారేజ్ అనేది ఏం లేదు, ఓన్లీ సెక్షువల్ ప్రామిస్క్యూటీ. అంటే ఏంటి, ఎనీవన్ కెన్ మేట్ విత్ ఎనీవన్. ఒక సొసైటీ చదివాను నేను, వెరీ ప్రిమిటివ్ సొసైటీ, దే డోంట్ హ్యావ్ స్క్రిప్ట్, లాంగ్వేజ్కి స్క్రిప్ట్ లేదు, రిటర్న్ రికార్డ్ లేదు. సో ఓకే చదివాను, ఈ సొసైటీని చదివాను నేను. నెక్స్ట్ ఇంకొక సొసైటీని చదువుతాను, అది కొంచెం ఓకే. ఫర్ ఎగ్జాంపుల్ తోడాస్ అనుకుందాం. తోడాస్లో పాలియాండ్రీ ఉంది, తోడాస్లో కూడా. I studied other society, some X. ఇక్కడ పాలిగైనీ ఉంది. ఇంకొక సొసైటీ చదివాను, అక్కడ మోనోగామీ వచ్చేసింది. ఈ ఎథ్నోసెంట్రిక్ పీపుల్ ఏం చేస్తారు అంటే, ఓకే సో సొసైటీ ఎలా ఇవాల్వ్ అయింది, ఇది హైయెస్ట్ అనుకుంటారు. బికాస్ దిస్ ఈజ్ ప్రివాలెంట్ ఇన్ దేర్ సొసైటీ, దిస్ ఈజ్ అ సుపీరియర్. సో మైట్ బీ పీపుల్ ఇక్కడి నుంచి ఇవాల్వ్ అయ్యారేమో. ఫస్ట్ ప్రామిస్క్యూటీ ఉంది, తర్వాత ఇలా ఇవాల్వ్ అయింది, మ్యారేజ్ సిస్టమ్ ఇలా ఇవాల్వ్ అయింది, ఫైనల్గా సివిలైజేషన్లో మోనోగామీ వచ్చింది. ఆర్ దేర్ వాల్యూ జడ్జ్మెంట్స్ హియర్? ఎస్ ఆర్ నో? వాల్యూ జడ్జ్మెంట్స్ ఉన్నాయా లేదా? థింక్. ఐఎమ్ కీపింగ్ దిస్, ఎక్కడ చెప్తున్నాను, ఇది ఫస్ట్ ఇనీషియల్గా ఇది వచ్చింది, తర్వాత ఇలా, తర్వాత ఈ స్టేజ్ వచ్చింది, తర్వాత ఫైనల్గా ఈ ఫోర్త్ సివిలైజేషన్ స్టేజ్ అంటున్నా. అంటే ఇవన్నీ లోవర్ స్టేజెసే కదా, వాల్యూ జడ్జ్మెంట్ ఉంది కదా. యువర్ సేయింగ్ దీస్ ఆర్ ఆల్ అన్ఇవాల్వ్డ్ పీపుల్ వీళ్ళు. according to ethnocentric thinkers. వీళ్ళందరూ unevolved. Their practices are derogatory and primitive. So how do I sound? Relativism la sound చేస్తున్నాను, ethnocentric గానా? Ethnocentric. అదే cultural relativism, especially this was developed by historical particularist school. I told you Franz Boas. ఆయన ఏం చెప్పారు? What did he say? He said, when you study a culture, understand the history of that culture. When you know what circumstances had led to that customs. Only when you understand the history of that culture, then you will really value that culture. You will not see through your ethnocentric views. Right? See, today you are saying that India is a still developing country and America has already developed just by dropping a bomb. Right? Why? Because Americans also have seen this colonialism, but they got independence very soon. They fought for their independence. It took 200 years for India. And they have robbed India. Yes or no? You understand the history of that particular culture. Just don't say it's India is still developing, India will be developing. Because we don't have resources, we have been robbed. Generations were left under darkness. We are not even allowed for mass education, right? Only elites were, education was accessible to few particular elites. So these are different approaches. And do you think ethnocentrism was predominantly spearheaded by British thinkers? They feel that their Victorian civilization is the superior civilization and rest of the civilizations are all lower. So that's why they gave these evolutionary stages. They said from savagery, the culture evolved to barbarism and then to civilization. Civilization is nothing but Victorian civilization. So according to them, have you heard this theory, white man's burden? White man's burden. Yes, someone's telling. Indians ni rule cheyadaniki, you know what judgment they have said? Britishers వాళ్ళు ఎలా justify చేసుకున్నారు the atrocities on Indians or what they rule in India. They said Indians are not that mature enough. They are in the savagery and barbaric stages. We are teaching them civilization. That is our burden. That's where they call it white man's burden. Just to legitimize their rule, they came up with this concept and they ruled India. They exploited India. So for them, their civilization is the supreme civilization. So rest of the world follow the same path. It goes through savagery, barbarism and Victorian civilization. So we'll study this in chapter 6. Right?
Savagery and avante ఏంటి?
ఆటవికులు అంటారు కదా, తెలుగు కూడా రాదా? ఇట్లయితే కష్టం. అంటే see, these are kind of కొంచెం derogatory terms. You can't call few people మీరు ఆటవికుల్లా బిహేవ్ చేస్తున్నారు అంటే you don't have a civic sense అని. అడవి మనిషి అంటారు కదా, అడవి మనిషి ఇలా చేస్తున్నారు. So these are not right terms, proper terminology కాదు ఇది, kind of derogatory. So there is some value ఉంది ఇక్కడ, value laden terms ఇవి. So this is ethnocentrism. Cultural relativism says don't do that. Don't call them savagery. They have their own culture. And because see, why do they have certain kind of customs or culture? ఎందుకు అవి ఉన్నాయంటే you have to dig into their past. వాళ్ళ history ఏంటి? And also we have culture ecology model of Julian Stewart. Julian Stewart says particular custom undi ante maybe వాళ్ళ environment is not that conducive. To adapt to certain environment, they have adopted certain practices maybe, right? So how can you judge cultures as a good or bad? In cross-cultural studies, you pick up different cultural elements from different cultures. This cross-cultural study was done by diffusionists also. See, వాళ్ళు ఏమంటారంటే when you study two cultures చదువుతున్నాం, two cultureలో similar elements ఉన్నాయి. What does that mean? They are geographically isolated. దూరంగా ఉన్నాయి రెండు cultures. but still similar elements unnai. What does that mean? So maybe culture diffused from one place to the other. How it diffused? Maybe people are moving to the other places, they are carrying their culture and they are distributing it, that culture, right? So that's why we study different cultures. We compare different cultures, not that to in an ethnocentric way. Now you got it, right? Yes. Any more doubts? So we have covered entire anthropology here. All the chapters, chapter 6, chapter 7, chapter 8. Please write down. Unique features of anthropology. Question, if they have to ask a question, they won't ask you unique features. They'll ask questions like, why is anthropology dear to anthropologist? Why? Why is anthropology dear to anthropologist? There is such a question here. What will you write? What will you write if we asked you why anthropology is dear to anthropologist? Why?
They don't get the culture.
Okay. You can't write that 1 point for 10 marks or 20 marks, right? Write these features. Because of these unique features, anthropology leaves a mark in every field. Don't write each and everything. You have to write according to the marks allotted to it. For a 10 marker and for a 20 marker. These days they are asking a simple question for a 20 marker and a big question for 10 marker. Unique features of anthropology. First one, cultural relativism. It's an anthropological approach. Cultural relativism. It's an anthropological approach which states that every culture is equally valid. Every culture is equally valid. And it should be viewed, every culture is equally valid and it should be viewed objectively. And it should be viewed objectively through its own logic. It should be viewed objectively through its own logic. It is proposed by historical particularist school of thought. It is proposed by historical particularist school of thought. Historical particularist school of thought led by Franz Boas. Led by Franz Boas. Example? Franz Boas. Example? One cannot criticize beef eating by non-Hindus. One cannot criticize beef eating by non-Hindus. Next feature. One cannot criticize beef eating by non-Hindus. Holism. Holism. An interdisciplinary method. An interdisciplinary method used to study an interdisciplinary method used to study the totality of man. Used to study the totality of man. Example, in medical anthropology, knowledge of ethnography, behavioral patterns are studied to understand origin and spread of diseases. Next feature, field work. It is the hallmark of anthropology. Wherein first-hand data is collected, recorded and documented. Participant observation developed by Malinowski. Participant observation developed by Malinowski is a fieldwork technique. In which the researcher studies a society by directly participating in their social, cultural activities. As a member of that society. Cross-cultural and comparative study. Next feature. Cross-cultural and comparative study. Where different societies, cross-cultural and comparative study, where different societies are studied and compared to understand the universal general and specific features. To understand the universal, general and specific features of human biology, culture and society. Of human biology, culture and society. Next feature, synchronic and diachronic studies. Synchronic and diachronic studies. Synchronic study indicate studying a culture at a particular point of time. Studying cultures at a particular point of time. In diachronic studies, a culture is studied across different time periods. Next feature, emic and etic approach. Terms emic and etic were coined by Kenneth Pike. Marvin Harris in his book The Rise of Anthropological Theory, explain the concepts of etic and emic. In his book, The Rise of Anthropological Theory, explained the concepts of etic and emic. Emic is the people view. The approach seeks to understand the culture. From natives' perspective. Etic is the anthropologist view. The approach seeks to understand the culture. From observer's perspective. The approach seeks to understand the culture from observer perspective. Any questions so far? So let's discuss the significance of anthropology. What is the significance of anthropology or applications of anthropology? How anthropology helps? What is the significance of anthropology? What is the relevance of anthropology? Tell me, give me one point how it helps. How anthropology helps. How it helps understand ourselves. How anthropology helps understand ourselves. How are we different from our ancestors? How are we different from primates? Why do only humans have culture? Do only humans have culture, or even other primates have culture? That we'll explore in next chapter. So actually, anthropology helps you understand about oneself. Also, anthropology helps you understand the human differences. Have you seen North Indian people are quite fair? And have you seen Northeastern people, they have epicanthic folds? I should not show. They have a typical different morphological features, yes or no? You can, when you see Northeast people, you can definitely tell they are from Northeast. Yes? Why there are human differences? Anthropology helps you understand these human differences. Why there are cultural differences? Because different cultures have different customs. Why? There are several reasons. There are biological reasons, there are cultural reasons, there are environmental reasons. People adapt in different conditions in a different way. Not that all people living in cold areas have similar culture, right? They have their own ways of coping up mechanisms, and that is a cultural response majorly. And does anthropology helps you demystify or bust myths? Yes or no? I say that it will help you bust the myths. What kind of myths it busted so far? Your myths or the myths we have discussed. What is myth? Something you believe it is true, but for sure you don't know it is true. Just because people are believing it, you believe it. Yes, it's coming from generations, many people are believing it, so you believe it is true. Unless you prove that it is wrong. That is called myth. Does anthropology busted any myth? Are Victorians superior? That's a myth. When you understood the cultures, when you studied the cultures, see, they used to say myth of ethnocentrism especially, that white people are intellectually superior. White people belongs to high superior race. No, they are not. Anthropologists have conducted studies, especially taking principles from biology, especially that principles of genetics we'll study from chapter 9, that there is no connection between intellectual capability and genes. There are so many factors apart from that. But why people are different? We have Americans, they have a different skin tone, they have a different texture, hair color. See, race is something which is very biological concept. Racism is a sociological concept. We have created racism. We have added value of superior, inferior. That's why these myths of racism, ethnocentrism were busted once and for all because of anthropology. People used to believe that people of superior skin color, height, they are intellectually capable, they are physically capable, but that is not truth. Just because certain gene frequencies are restricted, there are certain customs like marrying only within that group. There are certain things, customs, which restricted the movement of genes outside. That's why people of a particular geographical location look similar. That's why, right? Next, what else anthropology helped? How it will help? So what is the significance? From our earlier classes, have you studied about applied anthropology? How anthropology solve problems? As I said, cultural relativism, you can mention that. How cultural relativist approach can bring harmony in society. Next, add points. See, whatever you studied, you have to make points out of it. It's not that you keep on accumulating knowledge. Apply the knowledge when question is asked. You have studied unique features. So I'm asking you, what is the significance? What is the application of anthropology? Tribal development? How will it help tribal development? Tell me.
By knowing the problems.
You will understand the problem. So you will bring up more humane policies. You don't just make people rehabilitate, displace people from their own lands. Right? And more acceptable policies. Policies which are acceptable to locals. We brought tribal Panchashil based kind of few principles which have to be incorporated into policy making for a successful policies in tribal areas. We brought PISA in tribal areas, Panchayat extension to scheduled areas, where Gram Sabhas were given more powers for approval or disapproval of projects. You're getting me right? Next, any more? Social equalities, okay. How anthropology will help? So let's discuss how anthropology can, let us take a case study. Sabarimala temple issue. Supreme Court said women can enter, but society is not accepting that. Religion is not accepting that. What is your stake as an anthropologist? What do you say? How do you approach that problem? Because these days, anthropology is not left to anthropologists alone. Now anthropologists are becoming social doctors and social engineers. Administration is actively pursuing their guidance for solving societal problems. Tell me, how will you? You will? గట్టిగా
శబరిమలలో ఉమెన్స్కి ఎంట్రీ లేదన్నారు కదా, ఫస్ట్ రీజన్ ఏంటి? ఆ రీజన్ తగ్గట్టుగా వాళ్ళకి ఎక్స్ప్లెయిన్ చేయడం.
You know, anthropology knowledge you can use in ethics and essay as well. Yes? Suppose this is a case study in ethics. How will you solve the problem? Because at one moment, the people are just rebelling. People are beating up women who are entering. On the other hand, even Supreme Court said women can enter. But whom do you choose? Like, you have to create a congenial environment where there is no cures, no fights. Society has to accept, and the court also. So how will you solve this chaos? There are women protesters protesting that we will enter, but people are beating them up. It's becoming a law and order problem. How will you solve this? Being an administrator, anthropologist, with an anthropology option. Think. When they asked you about the contemporary relevance of anthropology, I think you can mix these current affairs and the approach. That will fetch you more marks, rather than just mugging up some case studies and writing. So don't say anthropology is just static. Tell me, how will you solve the problem? Think and tell me. Give me points. You need not tell the whole answer. Give me points. We'll make up the answer. First, as an anthropologist, what will you do? It's legally permissible, but people are not accepting it. So you can't take action on everyone, right? You can't keep everyone under jails, prisons, because prisons are already over-occupied. It's 113% occupancy rate. How will you approach? Can you use any feature of anthropology? Can you quote any feature of anthropology which helps you? So you'll go to the field and
understand the problem, like why they are not allowing women.
okay, what are the underlying reasons? Major reason is tradition. They say it's coming from generations. First point. And what is the other point you will say? Fear of God. What if we antagonize God by allowing women? So there is a religious aspect. No, I'm talking the recent, like the judgment, the controversial judgment. Allow chase are not everyone, but there is a certain age ఏజ్ లిమిట్ ఉంది కదా, ఆ విమెన్ని కూడా అలౌ చేయొచ్చు అని సుప్రీం కోర్ట్ ఇట్ గేవ్ ఇట్స్ జడ్జ్మెంట్ బికాస్ ఇట్ ఈస్ అ వైలేషన్ ఆఫ్ ఆర్టికల్, విచ్ ఆర్టికల్? ఆర్టికల్ 14th. అండ్ ఆల్సో యూ కాంట్ డిస్క్రిమినేట్ కదా, ఎవ్రీవన్ ఈక్వల్గా ఉండాలి. సో అందుకని ఎనీ విమెన్, ఎనీ ఏజ్ కేటగిరీ విమెన్ కెన్ ఎంటర్ అని చెప్పారు. బట్ పీపుల్ ఆర్ నాట్ యాక్సెప్టింగ్ దట్. సో హౌ విల్ యూ సాల్వ్ దిస్ ప్రాబ్లమ్? You have limited resources. You have to use ethics concepts also and anthropological concept as well. So what they do as an anthropologist, what will you do? You'll try to find out the reason for their refusal. You will talk to religious heads. You will go back to the religious scriptures which gave that myths. There are certain myths. I've heard certain myths that when it seems that one of the women, she told me, once upon a time, so and so, she don't know. So a woman entered of the menstruating age, she entered and she took a dip in that Pamba river and she became half crocodile and half woman. Seriously, is it not a myth? Where was it written? It was just spread through orally, it was spread, right? They don't have any literary origin, only oral origins. So anthropologists have to work there. What is a source? What, as from ethics perspective, what will you add then? See, cultural relativism, this is what you will add. And from ethics perspective, you have to go through, you have, ethics jarigindi kada meeku? No? Okay. Then you will go with the attitude, emotional intelligence aspects. How will you change attitude, social persuasion, influence, persuasion, these techniques you will use. It's what Aristotle you will say, ethos, logos, pathos, that you will use, right? So when you are writing, when he asks for contemporary relevance, just mention this, the Sabarimala issue and how it can be solved through cultural relativism, or cow vigilantism, how can you solve? Communalism, how people are fighting based on religion. And also regions are fighting for separate state or separate country like Nagaland. What governments are doing a top-down approach. They don't know what are the exact needs of the people. They want development. So they're just imposing some policies. Rather than when you study a particular culture, what are their specific issues, then you can come up with more acceptable policies, right? Next, applied anthropology. What is applied anthropology? In applied anthropology, the knowledge of anthropologists used by different agencies, be it a private agency or a government agency, to bring out their policies. Like for example, an insurance company can take ethnographic data from an anthropologist. Okay, this kind of tribe has specific disease. So they can bring out some policies for that specific tribe. A government can take knowledge of certain tribe. Okay, these tribes have certain health issue. So we'll bring out with mass surveillance program in these tribal areas. Mosquito-borne diseases, especially in particular tribe. They can bring out some customized policies. What is action anthropology? In action anthropology, anthropologists become administrators. Like LP Vidyarthi, SC Dubey will study in paper 2, Indian anthropologist, how they contributed to the tribal development, right? So any more to add? I think we are being very comprehensive, right? Right. Take notes. Significance of anthropology. Only thing is you have to use your knowledge, apply your knowledge. They don't ask you directly what is the significance of anthropology or what are the unique features of anthropology. Understand the question. Okay, when they ask you what is the relevance, contemporary relevance of anthropology today, you can write whatever the problems we have discussed and how anthropologists can help. We have tribal issues, right? We have communal issues where Hindus and Muslims are fighting. We have regional issues where many regions are asking for a separate state, right? So how can you solve these problems? Anthropology comes handy with its unique features. First one, significance of anthropology. understanding ourselves. It helps understand ourselves. It helps understand ourselves. Next point, understanding human, biological and cultural differences. Understanding human, biological and cultural differences. Next point, clarification of myths regarding tribals. Clarification of myths regarding tribals, such as barbaric nature. See, they spread a view that whenever you understand tribal or savagery nature, you feel that they eat humans also. There are certain word of mouth. అంటే కొన్ని రూమర్స్ ఉంటాయి, ట్రైబల్స్ అనగానే మనుషుల్ని తినేస్తారు. Yes. So anthropology, after conducting field work, after anthropologists visited several tribal areas and conducted field work, they said that is not true. That is very specific and rarest of the rare case. Not all tribals are savagery. They have good laws. Konni societies look, they codified laws even before state has emerged. They have a very good laws and egalitarian systems. And we study in chapter 2 the contributions of tribals to Indian civilization. Right? Next point. It disproved the myth of racism. Disproved myth of racism. Disproved myth of racism. Understand, next point. Understand adaptation mechanism of, understand adaptation mechanism of different cultures. Understand adaptation mechanism of different cultures. Next point, applied anthropology. Applied anthropology. The knowledge of anthropologist. The knowledge of anthropologist used in policy making. The knowledge of anthropologist used in policy making and administration of various areas. The knowledge of anthropologist used in policy making and administration of various areas. Action anthropology, next point. Action anthropology, a specialized branch of anthropology. A specialized branch of anthropology where a specialized branch of anthropology where the anthropologists are involved in planning, where anthropologists are involved in planning and administration, where the anthropologists are involved in planning and administration. Next point, it helps in conflict resolution. Helps in conflict resolution. Disproved the myth of racism. Disproved.